What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Real Ones Canes podcast. I'm the Beast, Brian London. My co-host is Brandon O'Doy. The numbers are blowing up on the YouTube page. We just got to get you all to subscribe to the podcast. Just go to wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, places I've never even heard of before, but they're registering. You guys want to listen? And we're getting listeners from other countries all over the world, man. There's Canes fans everywhere. So go subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate it. And Brandon, as we start this week's show, I think it's important that I put this out there, that we are recording this just before noon on Thursday, December 14th. And literally by the time we are done or in the middle of the show or after I post it, we could have a new quarterback at the University of Miami. We don't know yet. We don't know where we are with that situation. It is a minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour situation. So if that does happen, if we do get a new QB1, Brandon and I will reconvene and hit you with an emergency Real Ones Canes podcast to make sure we cover the issue. Is that fair to say, Brandon, that we're not sure yet and we're waiting? We're in a waiting game.
Yeah, we're definitely in a waiting game. I mean, we've got to get to a point where, we're sure about what's going to happen. We're sure about, what the next steps are for the University of Miami. But, there are a lot of things that are up in the air right now. So, we need time to allow these things to flesh out before we can accurately discuss them. And we'll discuss some of the things that we know to be true. And then we'll kind of speculate about some things that we think are true. And that's what podcasting is all about.
All right, so let's divide this thing up into two segments, okay? First, let's start with the outgoing, right? Like where the roster is and the outgoing aspect of it, right? So let's just look at that right now. The guys that have voiced that they are leaving, right? We have to the NFL. I believe it's Cam Kitchens, right? It's Williams, it's Matt Lee, I believe, is out there going to the NFL. Who am I forgetting here? Let's see.
Javion Cohen.
Yeah, Javion Cohen is going to LT is going to the NFL. So those guys are gone to the NFL. Portal departures, right? Cyrus Moss, Jaleel Skinner, Chance Williams, Corey Flagg, TVD, and we'll talk about his landing spot, Don Chaney, Jafari Harvey, and this one surprised me, Brandon, wide receiver Colbie Young, who I thought really could take the next step next season. That one kind of caught me by surprise.
Yeah, I mean, you take a guy that's a big target and, somebody who would be a great piece to lure a portal quarterback of great, stature into the program with, like, hey, get a chance to throw to Colbie Young. And this is one of the reasons we were so hard on TVD last year, because Tyle Van Dyke was the quarterback of a program that lined up Colbie Young, Jacoby George, Xavier Restrepo, and at times Rashard Smith. And like, this was your four guys that you got to throw the ball to. And at any given moment, these guys can make huge plays. Now, he didn't have a tight end to speak of, but at the end of the day, these guys produced. Restrepo had almost 1,000 yards, if not right up under 1,000. Colbie had, Jacoby George had a little bit over 500, and Colbie was around the same, and they all produced at a very high level. So you have a lot of guys that are coming back who are capable. And that's to say to a Cam Ward of Washington State, to say to a Will Howard, like, hey, man, you guys want to come play some football? Like, it's pitch and catch. These guys can get open. They can make plays. And these guys have ability.
Yeah, so the Colbie Young thing caught me off guard. But, there's so many factors that go into these kids' decisions. It used to be pretty simple, right? It's playing time, it's system, a coaching change, but with the NIL situation, with all the whole gamut of college football, out there. It's just these kids are processing so many different factors, and that's influencing what decision they make to stay or go. It's almost impossible to keep track of at this point. Like I find myself getting dizzy when I tried to think about it. We wish all the guys good luck, right? We hope they land in great situations and do well for themselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't wish any negativity on a guy that came, won games, put on your uniform, and was a good ambassador. Whether he played well or didn't play well, he gave his best. You always wish that young man well. And also because he's a child. These guys are kids. They're 18, 19, 20, 21, 23-year-old kids. And at the end of the day, you want to see them have success, especially as life is really just getting started for them. With Tyler Van Dyke, I think I like the move to the Big Ten. This is a place where they're not going to have the arms that, he can display at times. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be very heavy on the things that he does well. He's going to get protected really well by a lot of the lines that they have. He's not going to be asked to do air raid. He's not going to be throwing the ball 50, 60 times a game. He's going to throw the ball 25, 30 times a game, have the chance to have some accuracy. He's going to be on play action. He's going to have plenty of time to sit in the pocket, look downfield, try to dissect, defenses, because that's not his strength. He needs to really see, what's going on very clearly and have some concepts kind of, playing into what he does best. And sort of these more, run first offenses or preferred, I think just the tempo and everything is going to help him, become a better prospect. And people are probably, I'm telling you right now before it happens, people are going to wish for TVD, Wisconsin TVD again, like they wish for SMU TVD. But guess what? That TVD can never play like that at Hard Rock. So you just got to let him go be great, and maybe it'll revive his first round status. Maybe it will revive his because that was real. Like, there are elements of his game that are good. They're just other elements that teams figured out that are not good, and he was exposed. And so, unfortunately, it didn't work out here, but that doesn't mean he can't go to Wisconsin and have a great year. And they're looking at it like, man, we got a dude. Their people are excited.
Yeah, listen, I wish no ill will towards TVD. I love that kid, probably to a fault as it relates to my
you probably love him a little bit too much.
Yeah, as it relates to my analysis of that situation. But the cool thing is, I was online before we started, seeing a bunch of pictures. The December graduation is going on today at the University of Miami, and TVD was one of those kids that graduated from the University of Miami. I saw Cam Kitchens all excited. It's just good to see these kids kind of off the football field doing things that are important to them, like getting their degrees and all of that stuff. So, I wish that kid all the luck in the world. As it relates to what you were talking about with the loss of Colbie Young and how that could attract, right? Like, having a 6'5" receiver, big kid
who can run like the wind.
Yeah, that's a huge thing when it comes to attracting a quarterback. And as it relates to recruiting, is there anyone out there that can Miami go get somebody that can get the quarterback's juices flowing and be like, oh, if that guy's going to Miami, I need to be there to throw to him? Let
me tell you how smart Kevin Beard is. Even though he got hit with something he didn't expect, and he's, of course, the University of Miami, wide receiver coach. He sent a text to Jeremiah Smith not too long after Colbie Young got in the portal. He said, hey, man, your number 4 just became available. And there's a plug and a play. And his name is Jeremiah J.J. Smith. And that would be an excellent replacement for Colbie Young.
So, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on in recruiting that I can't even keep track of, right? Like, that's more your game than mine.
It's really not, but
but I'm just saying, not really. But also, a lot of these kids from the time they're, up to your knee, right? The names at least because you've seen them since especially the local kids,
especially the locals,
Yeah, because since they've been basically put in pads for the first time, you've seen them.
Yeah.
That program at Chaminade Madonna has really been impressive and what they've been able to do. And they're producing some great talent. And Jeremiah Smith is just one of them. I know one of their kids is already committed to come to the University of Miami, and
Yeah,
they're
Zaquan Patterson, he's really good too.
yeah, so they're producing some good talent. So I liked. Maybe I'm wrong, but when you think about the staple programs of South Florida, right? The Chaminades, the St. Thomases, the Heritages. You go down to Miami-Dade, the Columbuses, and some of the other big schools. You just feel
Hmm.
good about kids coming out of those schools because they'll be prepared, right? They've
Yeah,
gone through the rigors of South Florida high school football, and they're really prepared for the next level. So I like to get those kids, even though I couldn't tell you the first thing about what they do on the field because I haven't watched one game.
yeah. No, I mean, Chaminade's putting two kids right now in the University of Miami, Josiah Trader and Zaquan Patterson, one on both sides of the ball. Trader can come right in and play as a receiver, and Patterson can fill one of those safety spots being vacated by the departures to James Williams and also Cam Kitchens to the NFL. But when you talk about beyond that, they also have Cedric Bailey, who's currently the quarterback committed to an NC State, and they have Jeremiah Smith, who's the number one player in the country. So those guys are still sort of up for grabs and potentially could become Miami Hurricanes on Wednesday of next week. So the reality of the situation is simply this: can Mario Cristobal and his staff and all of the things that they have at their disposal, all their tools, can they collect around what would be the best recruiting class that the University of Miami has had in 2 decades? Or will they take what they have, the Zaquan, Josiah Trader, and they kind of just call it a day at Chaminade and kind of live with what it is that they have from that school and try to add maybe a Jordan Lyle or a running back from St. Thomas Aquinas, the state champion, also Ohio State commit along with, Jeremiah Smith. And it's funny because you use commit so lightly with these South Florida kids. I mean, these kids so quote unquote commit to schools, but really we know, just because of the culture, these are placeholders. The real commitment and the only commitment happens on signing day. That's the first time these kids commit to wherever they're going. And even right now, every kid has the ability to walk out of a program, as the transfer portal has given them that opportunity. So these kids could spend 1 year in these programs, not even, and 6 months if they arrive in the summer, and they're out of it. So that's just the changing face of college football and what's happening right now, Beast. And that's what makes things so temperamental and so sort of up in the air. And that's why we have a podcast to discuss it, because there's a lot going on, to say the very least.
Early signing day, I believe, is less than a week from now, next Wednesday. And a lot of questions will get answered on that day. I feel like that day is going to be a little bit crazy and up and down, and Canes fans may have to keep the Pepto Bismol around, to keep their tummies in check. But it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting, and we will definitely have all the news for you as it goes along. Let me ask you this question, Brandon. It's a loaded question. I don't mean to put you on the spot. As I told you before we started, I said I don't want to put you on the spot. But the University of Miami has kind of gone through some transition a little bit as it relates to NIL, right? Like when NIL started, all I knew about was John Ruiz. And he's kind of come to the back of the line here because he's got some things he's dealing with and there's whatever. And in the meantime, Miami's built up their own collective and trying to get things moving on that level. But so have other schools, right? But some of this stuff can be a little more complicated than we want to, talk about. Yesterday, Ohio State's quarterback, I thought I was going to Nebraska. He gets to Nebraska and says, no, I'm not going here. There's a lot of speculation. It's because the NIL situation that he was promised wasn't going to be what they had promised. We've seen this happen over the course. We saw FSU with the situation, and it can get muddy and murky and shady when it comes to all this stuff. How do you see the University of Miami? What have you heard about their NIL situation and as it relates to going after these recruits and portal guys as well?
I think the University of Miami kind of set the bar for how NIL is handled. Universally, they're respected in the space. as being one of the best with regard to NIL, because what John Ruiz was able to do before collectives were allowed in the NCAA is he took these young men and he made them employees of LifeWallet, and he gave them LifeWallet contracts. And so he put them on contracts with LifeWallet. They had real responsibilities. They had to show up, do tapings. They had to do all kinds of things. And so it's a situation where, they actually were able to fulfill the requirements of the NCAA and the NIL space. When it became understood that Miami was able to have a collective and that became a part of the NCAA rules and landscape, then you start seeing him go to the back. I think it's not, coincidental. I think it has to do with the natural progression of how the rules and other things worked. If there's no John Ruiz coming out and putting his company on the line, Miami doesn't get the understanding of NIL, and they're not able to set the trend for how NIL works. Remember, if this guy doesn't come forth with this Life Wallet company, hire these kids and pay them those monies, Miami is still at the back of the line with this. This is the first time since I've been covering the University of Miami that Miami has actually been at the forefront of a curve. They definitely missed the facilities curve by like decades. And, some of the recruiting things, some of the staffer things. We had staffers, at the University of Miami who weren't even making, $100,000 a year. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like in some real key positions. And, Mark Richt came in and he demanded, that the staff salary pools go higher and were commiserate with, some of these SEC schools and all these other programs. And the University of Miami just had to ante up. They had to change the locker room. That was antiquated. You got Dwayne Rock Johnson getting involved there. Jonathan Vilma donated a bunch of money. And because Miami had to get out of the Stone Age with a lot of the things they were doing in college football. I mean, they were literally living on the reputation. You know what I'm saying? I just had Coach Randy Shannon, had a conversation with him, and he started talking to me about how antiquated Miami was when he was the head coach here.
Oh,
You know
for
what I mean?
sure.
It's just like it was unbelievable. The type, like, it's one thing to criticize people, okay, when they don't win when you think they should, but it's another thing to actually go in and look to see what have they been given as tools and resources. Like, you look at my office, I'm a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I get Bible, I get notebooks, I have things that are to my disposal. I have a keyboard in order to, type sermons and study materials. I've got an office with a fan, with lights. I'm empowered with things to do my job. You understand what I'm saying? And when you bring in coaches, you bring in players, recruits, you don't have the things you need to have, you can't expect certain results. So now you have these things, right? You've been given these things. And so now it's like, okay, you see change happening. And so the question is it happening fast enough? And that's kind of where we are right now with this program.
Well, off topic for 1 second, but on the NIL note, my friend Mark Pearl was asking this question online, and he kind of tagged me. He said, "Hey, I would love your thoughts on this." So I'm going to pass the buck and ask you this question, which is, everyone expects Marvin Harrison to be one of the top picks in the NFL draft. Marvin Harrison Jr., that is wide receiver out of Ohio State, is one of the best talents I've seen in forever. But there's rumors out there that, that Ohio State could find an NIL deal for him for $20 million.
$20 million, right.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering where we're going with all this, because that seems absolutely insane to me. But here we are.
No, but see, the deal is, as soon as you involve money, okay, it becomes professional sports. I told one of the students, I said, listen, one of the young students who's graduating from our school and going to college, I said, look, you're a professional athlete now. I know you're going to college, but you're getting an NIL deal, and people are going to be looking at how you dress, how you talk, how you walk, and what your performance is in the classroom and on the field. You're under a microscope from now on. Every decision you make, will be scrutinized. You are a public figure. There's no such thing as, oh, my bad. No, you are there. And so that's the thing that I agree with kids getting money. I agree with, the ability to leave, because these coaches do it. These coaches leave. And they're making money. They have done tons of things off of these kids' backs for years. There should be some parity in the sense that kids get a chance to set up their own future, because the NFL is not guaranteed. It really, really isn't. And you have really good players. I mean, my ex-roommate was all Big Ten, and it's a situation where he wasn't even a draft pick. He was all Big Ten for 2 consecutive years. He rushed for over 2,000 yards at Northwestern, where we went to school. He's currently the president of the Washington Commanders. But my point to you is, this is one of the best players in the conference at the time, and this kid didn't even get drafted. You get what I'm saying? And he played 7 years as a free agent, and he never played significantly. And you never could have told me that would have been true based on the college career that he had. And so you got to get the money while it's coming. Now, back to this NIL John Ruiz thing for a minute, because there's a point that I left off.
Okay.
When John Ruiz was just a face, Miami always operated as a collective.
Right.
Life Wallet wasn't footing all those bills. There were people who didn't want to be out front and people who didn't want to be, in the public light, who were donating to that situation, but it all came through the Life Wallet Corporation, because before collectives were allowed, that's the important thing to remember, Miami had it figured out first. John Ruiz, if Miami turns the program around, has to go down in history as a trailblazing figure in this University of Miami program. Now, say what you want about him being in bankruptcy and all these other issues that he may have, forget all that. If you're a Miami Hurricane, you love what he did, because I'm telling you, I'm dealing with some other schools, and I know of other situations that are out there, and I'm telling you, NIL is not as figured out at other places as it is at Miami, and that's why you see a lot of recruiting wins that are happening. Now, don't get me wrong, Mario Cristobal is a dog recruiter as a head coach. He's relentless. He never gives up, but he's aided by a really well put together situation in the NIL game, and you have to tip your cap.
Yeah, you're only good, and this goes for what Randy Shannon went through at Miami and every other coach, you're only as good as the tools they give you to work with. No doubt about it. All right, we're going to take a break here in the Real Ones Canes podcast. On the other side, it is time to talk QB1. Who is going to be slinging that rock for the University of Miami next season? We will dive into that after this. You're listening to the Real Ones Canes podcast. And welcome back to the Real Ones Canes podcast. I'm the Beast, Brian London. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow us on the socials. Follow Brandon at Brandon_O'Doy and myself at Miami Radio Beast. And you can follow us on X at Real Ones Canes. And go subscribe to the podcast wherever you do that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just digest all of the content. It is there for you to just love and cuddle with. It's great stuff. Brandon, we need to dive into the quarterback situation. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but it's a bit of an issue as to who may be QB1 next season. It was almost a big issue as to who would be QB1 for the bowl game, but we think it's Jakari Brown. As to his future after the bowl game, we have no idea. Emory is recovering from an injury, and we got quarterbacks out there in the portal that Miami fans are taking sides, and they want other guys, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. So as I understand it, we have main portal options. Will Howard, who was the quarterback at Kansas State, 6'5", 242, a senior, I think 1 year of eligibility left. Last year had a really good year, threw 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and 2,643 yards, and was sacked 16 times. Now, the other guy that a lot of people want is Cam Ward out of Texas. He went to the University of Incarnate Ward, I believe, before ending up at Washington State. He's 6'2", 223. Last year threw 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, but was sacked 38 times. And then you got a guy like Dante Moore, who was just a freshman, so he's got plenty of time left. He had a not-so-great season, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, sacked 25 times. those seem to be the three guys out there. Who knows if there's a surprise candidate? But what are your thoughts as we look to the next possible portal quarterback to come into the University of Miami?
Well, it's a situation where I know this to be true. Miami's looking for an experienced quarterback because at the end of the day, they want a guy that can come in and be what TVD should have been. TVD really should be coming back if he were probably more so welcome back. And you heard Mario with some comments like on the radio, and we're not going to dance around issues. We're not going to skate around issues. I think he kind of said that to Joe Rose or something like that. And I mean, we can all read between the lines. Look, man,
Right.
You didn't get it done. Appreciate everything you did. 7-5. We'll take that on the chin. You blame us for the Georgia Tech loss, but we didn't get it done, and go be great. We're gonna laugh. We're gonna live and die with what we build in the future. So you got Emory, but you also don't know this kid's coming back from a bicep injury on his throwing hand. So at the end of the day, you got to go get an experienced guy, get a 1-year rental, let the guy come in and play hopefully really, really well, rebuild your offensive line, and have a situation to where you can put this team in a position to win games next year. You at least got to show improvements. You got to win 8 or 9 games next year. And so you want to get a Cam Ward, you want to get a Will Howard. Now with the Dante Moore piece and even Malik Murphy, who got into the portal last night, you want to be in a situation where you kind of have to assess, do we want to take a younger guy to stack up against the guys that we already have coming back in an Emory and then potentially a Jacurri? I'm of the mind that Jacurri is going to bet on himself, go out here, do well in the bowl game, and then take off. But there aren't a lot of places to go, especially given the fact that what seems like every starting quarterback in the country who could return jumped in the portal at the end of the season. So Miami is of the mind that they want to get a veteran guy. They're going to try to go get a veteran guy. If Cam says no, I think the quarterback will be Will. Malik getting into the thing. He's very intriguing, but you don't have a base of knowledge just to see, because he only played in 3 games in the history of his career. You don't know what he truly is. And the same thing with Dante. You don't know what you're getting because he didn't have the best season based on the stats and all of the things. They were both big, high, recruits out of high school. So I expect either Will Howard or Cam to be the quarterback, the next starting quarterback here. And then what they do behind that is going to be the thing that we have to watch. And that includes whether Jacurri stays. That includes how Emory gets better. That includes who they bring in addition to Judd Anderson is with regard to, signing the 24 quarterbacks, because they are trying to sign 2 because Miami is low on numbers. So even if you bring in Judd, you bring in a portal guy, you got Emory coming back and Jacurri leaves and Tyler is gone, you still need a 4th scholarship quarterback on the roster. So that's where a guy like a CJ Bailey from Chaminade comes in, who's committed to, NC State. That's a guy who could potentially end up in this class. And so now you got 4 quarterbacks.
The issue with the quarterback situation is always a delicate one, because in the past, Miami has brought in multiple guys via recruiting or transfers, and then those guys run into, well, I don't want to be the guy that sits and doesn't get playing time. I'm out. Now, things are a little bit different in today's world than it was, 15, 20 years ago. So some of that stuff doesn't carry over. But, you really can only play one guy at a time at that position. It's not like the running back position where you can have 3 guys rotate, right? Like, sure, you could give a package to a guy and, get him in every once in a while. But really, it's just one guy that plays. So, how do you keep all those guys happy is the question. And is it just going to be, hey, we'll have 4 or 5 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster next year, and then the year after that, it's all going to change again?
Well, I think, what's happening with quarterbacks is everything's on a year-to-year basis. I think that's one position you can honestly say you have the guys you have for that year, and you just never know when a guy that's 3rd on your depth chart is going to put his name in the portal and try to go find a place to play. I mean, this is Alabama, this is Georgia, this is anywhere. No one is not susceptible to this trend that's taking place in college football right now. You have to, in order when you're dealing with talented guys at a position that only plays one, you have to sell guys on a vision. Got to sell guys on a vision. Same way Georgia sold, their current quarterback, Carson Beck. He sat on the bench for 4 years. I don't think people really understand that. And so he's going to come back, and take that second year as a starter to try to put Georgia back into the winning column in consideration to the college football playoff. But guess what? It's going to be harder next year because they got to win and they got to beat, 12 teams in order to win the championship because the CFP field is expanding. So this was going to be the last year that you really only had to win 2 games. That's unless he gets one of the top 4 seeds. And then, of course, it still kind of remains the same. But, yeah, this quarterback position beast, I mean, this is something that's going to be tricky at the very least. I think handling Ja'Curry and what happens in this bowl game is a principal thing because I don't want a guy like Ja'Curry leaving because Emory, I don't know if he's going to come back at 100%. And this is a guy that's going to be the second year in an offense that he's completely healthy. So even though you're bringing all these other guys in, everybody knows you're only one play away. Florida State went down to their 3rd quarterback. I've never thought a day was coming where I had to focus on not only who was the 2nd quarterback, but who's the 3rd guy.
Yeah, but look at what's happening to the quarterback position on the next level in the NFL, right? Every week there's guys starting I've never heard of, right? We get a Tommy DeVito starting for the Giants. I never heard of that guy. Browning starting.
Tommy DeVito,
Yeah,
Tommy DeVito is a guy from up north. He's been in some football camps I've been a part of. He played at, I believe, Syracuse.
Right.
He's a guy I've heard of only because I know him from his high school days.
Right, but my point is this: that if it's happening at the NFL level, usually that stuff trickles down.
Do you know why it's happening? Do you know why it's happening? Because the guys on the other side of the ball are faster. They're
1,000%.
Bigger, they're stronger, they're more violent than they've ever been. So this is a trend you're going to start seeing. People aren't just going to be focusing on getting a starter. You can get beat with your backup not being that good. Like, think about it. Emory came in and won games for this team last year. He won real games. And he almost beat Florida State.
And this
is a Clemson team that Miami hadn't beaten. I don't know how long. Like, you did that with a backup quarterback.
And it gets even tougher if you have a dual threat guy that can take off with his legs because he puts himself in a position to get hit even more times, right? Because now it's not up to the offensive line to keep him safe. It's, he's out there fighting for himself. And I think you're right. I think we're going to have to get to the point where QB2 has to be, looked at as somebody that can win you games. And not as big of a question mark as it has been, right? I mean, Miami basically won a championship with, back in 2001 with literally almost no one backing up Ken Dorsey. For a while, Ethnic Sands, the wide receiver, was your backup quarterback. I mean, it's just that was a different time, though.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, no one thought that Ethnic Sands was going to go out there and be a Heisman contender or be one of the best. But nowadays, you need your second guy to have that kind of lineage because any given play, he could be out there. So let's. Do you have a preference on these portal guys? I
don't. I mean, because I'm to the point where, I think that Tyle Van Dyke was so sketchy last year that either one of these guys, Howard or Ward, is an upgrade. Either one of them.
Yeah, I mean, Will Howard I would say Will Howard was more dual threat. Cam Ward is more of a back in the pocket passer, but got sacked a lot more times. I mean, they both have, great skill sets. So I think you can't go wrong with either. I am intrigued by Dante Moore for sure, but that would be a second guy. I wouldn't bring him in as my top of the line portal guy, but maybe a second guy. And if you bring in a second portal guy, well, what does that do down the line of the quarterback room, right? Because Judd is coming in. Is there another quarterback that's a recruit? And then you got the two guys that are here.
Well, I'm not worried about Judd. I'm worried about Emory. You know,
Right. No, I'm getting
what
to
happened with
Emery and
Emery? He
Jakari.
won games here.
Yeah. No, it gets dicey. It gets dicey for sure. I don't know how they'll figure it out, but certainly that's why Mario and his staff get paid a lot more money than I do. Just real quick on the other portal stuff. I saw that Jason Taylor was out with a big defensive lineman the other day. They're definitely out there now. It's starting to be getting it's picking up some steam. There's a center coming in from Indiana visiting. There's a safety coming in to visit. So the portal is starting to pick up a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, we know the team, and we know the places where they need people. They got to have a center. That has to happen. Yep. Okay, they have to get a guy, and they have to get a good one. They can't just the Matley pickup was probably one of the better pickups of the last several years because he met a really, really big need, and he was really, really good. And the most impressive thing about him, he didn't get injured. He stayed healthy the entire season, and he gave Miami the ability to run the ball like we've never run the ball in the past, I'd say since the Rick days, the DJ Dallas days. So at the end of the day, that was really, really good. And at the end of the day, you want to see a guy come in at center. You want another defensive tackle to kind of replace what you lose with Lawrence, LT. And you have a situation where, you don't know if Mesidor is going to be fully coming back healthy. Nobody's really said anything about him. And you know what you're getting on the edges with the Ruben Bain and some of the play that Wayne had done. I think Hafley's a loss. Jafar, I'm not excited about that. But you get guys back, but there's some holes to fill. And so outside of quarterback, the tackle is a focus, center is focus, and you gotta hope one of those young old linemen develops. I mean, we're gonna get a chance to see Alex Mirabal. Like you had guys who were developing, that came in. Can you turn one of them into an every down starter? Like, to replace Javon Cohen. And this is what we're going to get a chance to see now because this class is not full of guys that are on the offensive line. This is a very defensive line heavy class and a lot of skill players. And so, we got to see what he's able to do. And there's 3 running backs right now, so it's a lot going on in this class for the University of Miami.
I can tell you this, the one position that I'm not going to worry about as it relates to this team because of Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal and not only their background with what they've done, but what they've done recently is the offensive line. I just feel like
it stunk last year. So were they just not here long enough?
Yeah, I think it takes time to get your bleep together.
Like does
everything else. Yeah. No, I agree. I think it takes time, and I think it takes getting the guys that you pick and your personnel in there and
two absolute dogs and great recruiting.
Yeah, correct.
I didn't see a whole lot of coaching.
Yeah, but I feel good, better about that position being developed than others. So let's just say that. So here's the deal. We're going to end this podcast. I'm going to edit it quickly and get it up as soon as possible. And then I'm guessing as soon as I get the podcast up, I'm going to get an alert on my phone that some quarterback in the portal has committed to the University of Miami. And then I'm going to have
let me challenge you. You're going to have to work hard to get it up before that actually happens.
Yeah,
but I think you got time.
Thank you for the pressure.
Because I think Cam Ward's going to FSU this week.
Yeah, Cam Ward's at FSU, I think, as we speak.
I don't think you'll. I think we'll know something by Saturday, Sunday.
All right. Well, then you and I will have to, we'll reevaluate and see where we are.
Parlay again.
Yeah, we'll talk again. Here's my biggest fear. Right, is Sundays. You're busy. You're leading. You are doing your thing. You're preaching. You got everyone, all eyes on you. And
the whole world goes to crap.
Right. And you're out there getting the good message. You're getting the good message out there. And meanwhile, I'm sitting in front of my computer sweating because that's when it's all going to just go to heck in a handbasket, right? That's my anxiety, just pumping it. But
that probably sounds about right. So
yeah, that figures. All right, dude. I think we got some good info out there. I think we asked some good questions. We got some good topics out there for people to think about. And the next time we talk to the people, I think we'll have a new QB1 and we can dissect that. Maybe pull up some film, throw it out there. Maybe we can see if we can find a quarterback whisperer to kind of break down the film. Maybe.
Yeah, I think we can. I think that'll be a good thing to have. We haven't had a guest in a little while.
Yeah. So we might be able to do that. So we'll try to slide into some DMs and see what happens. All right, man. It's been a good show. Hey, people out there, listen, if you like what you heard, and I know you did because you're still listening, go subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. If you'd rather see our mugs, our faces, and Brandon doing all sorts of, he makes he uses his hands a lot better than I do.
That's why our YouTube numbers are high.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's it right there. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. And until then, until we see you next time, thank you for listening. It's the Real Ones Canes podcast.